Hey, Stephen Yanni here doing the Junkyard Crawl at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts with a very significant revolutionary car from the smog 70s, the Volkswagen Rabbit. Don't call it a Golf until the 1984 model year. From 1975 through 83, these cars sold in the States and in Canada were called Volkswagen Rabbits. Now the thing with this is it was Volkswagen's first front drive liquid-cooled platform to take over from the time-honored air-cooled rear-engined Beetle. And unlike the Beetle, the engine's up front on the Golf or the Rabbit. In this case here, this one is a convertible. Now the thing with the convertibles, these were very expensive cars. When this thing was new, it was $9,340, which was twice the price of a base Rabbit hatchback. And believe it or not, about $1,000 more than a Camaro Z28 in 1981. Yeah, you really had to want a Volkswagen Rabbit convertible to buy it. Again, $9,340. I'll take the Z28, but again, that's just me. More on that in a second. Now the power plant in this thing, of course, is going to be a little four-cylinder engine, transverse mounted, and there she blows right there. 1981, first year for mechanical fuel injection. We see it here, carburetors in 1980 in the States. And again, this engine right here is a 1.7 liter, 74 horsepower, 89 foot-pounds. But the irony is, this is actually an under-square design, which is to say the bore, 3.13 inches, is smaller than the 3.4-inch stroke. And that's generally done when you want to get more low-end torque than high RPM power. So again, this little 1.7 liter engine is an under-square design, whereas over-square, larger bore, smaller stroke is the recipe for most post-war engines. Well, not on the Volkswagen 4 Banger. The weird thing on these things right there, I always think, what is that? It looks like a large alien sack of eggs from an insect or some whacked out thing. That's actually a vacuum canister right there. It's a reservoir. There's a little hose comes down here. This little nylon tube feeds into a vacuum port here that helps the engine and also feeds into the climate control system. This is vacuum operated, the defroster, etc. So you always have a ready supply of vacuum when you operate the controls and the EFI stuff, thanks to this weird alien egg pod underneath the hood. Kind of weird. But again, this is you know, a marvel of packaging, transverse front engine. So everything from the firewall back is about people. No need to mess with drivetrain tunnels, no rear axle. Advanced stuff. And in fact, the Consumer Guide Used Car Price and Rating Guide from 71 through 81. This is about if you're going to buy a used car back in the early 80s, you might buy this to see what you're getting into. You know, if there's recalls. And right here, they talk about 75 through 80 Volkswagen Rabbit. And they loved it. Set the standards by which modern small cars are judged. And up here it says, handle is agile and road holding tenacious. Fuel economy outstanding and performance brisk thanks to efficient engines and lightweight engineering. And we can see down here, the production was transferred to America in 79-80. More on that in a second. But here we have, look at the convertible two-door, 2,225 pounds. In other words, it's 225 pounds or so more than a 5 or a 3-door. These are heavy little cars, again, convertible. And again, trunk volume, 6 cubic feet versus the hatchback's 21 cubic feet. Again, we'll get to that stuff in a second. But again, you got to remember that the Volkswagen Rabbit was basically, I won't say it was a copy of the Dodge Plymouth Horizon Omni of 1977-78, but it's a fact that Volkswagen definitely took the Talbot, which is what the Omni and Horizon were based on, and took a long look. Now, those cars were out in the late 60s, those front-wheel drive Chrysler Talbot things, the French. But again, Volkswagen Rabbit took that idea and perfected it. But with that said, the Omni and Horizon from Chrysler are not related to these. There's nothing interchangeable, with the exception, I think, of the first year the engines were used, but the suspensions, everything's different. But the blueprint of front-wheel drive efficiency was really baked right here, Volkswagen. Now this one here, notice the front fender says Carmen right there. Now if you know your Volkswagen history, Carmen Ghia, Carmen also made Volkswagen Beetle cabriolets, which went out of production in 1977. So when that dropped out, or 79, excuse me, so 1980, the Rabbit convertible came along to replace it. But Carmen is a German car maker. If this was a hatchback, it'd be made in Pennsylvania. But because of the complexity and the intricacy of the convertible body style, every Rabbit convertible was made in Germany at Carmen, shown there. Now, speaking of that convertible top, here it is. Woo, lift this right up like this. Just kind of got car arthritis. But there it is right there, manual top. But notice this right here. That is an always present Targa type bar. It's sporty, but more importantly, it's an anti-rollover mandate right there. So if the car goes on its head, you got a better chance of surviving it. And it also gives an anchor point for the shoulder harnesses. So again, it is a convertible, but it's also kind of a Targa. We open the doors, and before we do that, we notice right here, these little vent windows. On a base Volkswagen Rabbit, this was a fixed window. You could buy as an option little vent windows that actually, that actually worked. And again, on the Rabbit convertible, it was standard fare, and I believe on the mid-scale Rabbit hatchbacks, it was also an option. But with that said, the little vent window right there was actually an extra cost item, whereas in America, it was kind of an obsolete thing. But anyway, this has the 5-speed manual transmission, as all of these cabriolets did, full gauge package. And again, these were, you know, about as highly outfitted as you could have in a Volkswagen Rabbit. And again, these were not cheap. $9,340. You could buy 2 basic Rabbit hatchback 2-doors for the price of 1 of these convertibles. Now, this kind of brings me back to my high school years. I went to a private school in Worcester, Mass, the Bancroft School. We have it right here. I graduated in 1982, the Blue Moon. And, you know, when I was a kid, I was a car freak. Here's my yearbook page on the right, Stephen Prysock Magnanti. And there's the Hemi engine. Of course, I was a Hemi freak back then as I am now. But one thing I have to say is we each got our full page. Well, one of my big crushes, I never got to act on it, was Liz Frem on the left-hand side. Liz was a pretty girl, still is, I'm sure, and out of Worcester, Mass. But here's the thing. She owned a brand new Champagne Edition Volkswagen Rabbit convertible. She loved that car so much, she included a drawing of it that she did right there. And on the bottom, there's the Rabbit. Yep, Rabbit, not Golf. And that's the same logo found on the back of every Rabbit built through 1983. The Golf name didn't come along until 1984. Speaking of that Rabbit, here it is right here. Right there, Rabbit, Volkswagen, fuel injection. And again, fuel injection new for 81. We see it under the hood of this one. And again, the back of this, the 6 cubic feet versus the 21 cubic feet of the hatchback is all about this little tiny trunk right here. And just enough room to get a spare tire in or out. And again, these weren't really, you know, built for any sort of utility, but this one has somebody's aftermarket subwoofer speaker thingamajig in there. Radio Shack, realistic, but underneath it, the spare tire well, there it is. And again, the hydraulic strut right here to keep the cylinder sort of up. But again, the Volkswagen Rabbit convertible. Don't call it a Golf, don't call it a cabriolet. Those marketing terms didn't arrive till 84 onward. And again, first generation Volkswagen Rabbit, huge sales success. And again, the convertible replaced the 79 Volkswagen Beetle, which was a big deal. In fact, the Beetle, as we know, went out of production for United States use, except for the convertible through 79. And you got to keep in mind too that Volkswagen was one of the few new car makers to offer an open-top car. Between 1977 and about 85, 86, American cars had virtually no convertible. So this was kind of the only game in town. Volkswagen knew it, and they charged $1,000 more than a Z28 for one of these things. So if you owned one of these back in the day, you were lucky. Liz Frem, I love you wherever you are. You had one of these. I wanted to drive in it with you so bad. I never got the chance. But with that said, that's the story of how Volkswagen decapitated the Rabbit, made a lot of money, and doubled their retail price on the convertible versus a little hatchback. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel, hit the like button, share this video with your Volkswagen loving friends, and even your Z28 loving friends, and be sure to hit the button so you know, the bell, so that you know when the next video hits, which is tomorrow morning.